What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, I'm Uncle Reddit, and this is r/malicious compliance. So this is the Monday video. As you can see, I'm still in my little cave here. We are going to try to do a couple recordings out on our trip out on the road in Pennsylvania, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But for now, I'm trying to get a couple videos ahead so that I'm not quite so pressured in case things fall apart while we're on the road. Or, you know, if I just get lazy, have a couple beers, and decide not to record, then you'll know that too. So, all right, let's get into it. I'm not allowed to take Ubers unless it's to the main airport? Fine. This happened years ago. In Toronto, there's a small island airport close to downtown, and then the full-on Pearson International. Once every 2 weeks or so, I'd have to travel, so I'd usually book my flight through the island airport, since it would be cheaper and my office was downtown. So it took like literally 15 minutes to get to, and there's no real customs or anything. You can show up 30 minutes before your flight, depart time, and be good to go. If my flight was at 1 p.m., I'd leave the office at noon and make it with time to spare. One day I get my expense request denied for the Uber that took me to the airport because it was close enough to walk. And as per company policy, taxi and Uber is only for Pearson. This was all over $12, which I was doing for months. Okay, fine. Next flight I booked in Pearson. The ticket was $900 instead of $400. I paid $70 in an Uber to get there instead of $12. And I had to leave work a full 3.5 hours before my flight to make it through check-in, security, etc. to get to my gate in time. Usually I'd be on some sort of call leading up to my flight, but here I couldn't do any work at all. Sorry team, I'm unavailable for the rest of the day because company policy. Come back and I'm asked why my expense report was double the usual amount I'd put in. It's because I can't expense a $12 Uber to Billy Bishop Airport, and I'm not going to walk for 40 minutes in my suit and dress shoes in the middle of January in the snow. 2 months later, it's now cost them $2,000+ over what I'd normally have spent. Some of the flights in that time were over $1,000 versus the $400 at the island airport. Finally, I get an email one day saying I can take whichever flights I deem best based on my judgment, and that any amount under $700 is auto-approved at the island airport. Now I get to eat a nice meal and sometimes upgrade myself to premium seats and still fall within budget. And down below that story in the comments from TossUp1010, I work at a small, mostly family-run business, and it's so funny seeing what my boss will drop $5K on at a moment's notice, but then look at a shipping system that costs us $30 a month and ask if we really need it. Every single year. I have to explain that it saves me probably 30 minutes a week, so that literally offsets my pay because my time is freed up for other things. That's like 2.5 hours and my pay is $25 an hour, so they're literally saving money, but it's too big picture to drill into his head. Yep, spend a pound to save a penny. It's amazing. Sometimes these guys just don't think. Like you said, it's too big picture for them. A $12 Uber ride, and they don't even realize the flight price difference or anything else. They just make assumptions and start trying to cut wherever they can, except for what they want. Then it's okay. Either work from the office 100% or get yourself signed off sick. I was working for a number of years in a tech company, always deemed a top performer. During the pandemic, we were all working from home. The moment the government stopped mandatory work from home, my boss said we all had to be back at the office. I developed a very serious health issue, not work-related, and I asked my boss if I could work 2 at home, 3 in the office weekly until surgery in 2 months. He said yes, only to next day tell me that he has thought about it and he wants a letter from my doctor since either I'm sick or in the office. I explained my medical diagnosis and that the law mandates reasonable accommodations. He repeated his request and that maybe I should see a lawyer or resign. Fine. I got signed off sick for 9 months since my medical team said that there is no way I could be working without accommodations. During this time, my boss had to continue paying my full salary. Then when the sick pay period was coming to an end, I did go and talk to a lawyer. And sued the company for disability, discrimination/refusal to make reasonable accommodations. And won. What would have cost them nothing to accommodate ended up costing them a 6-figure amount. Whoa, that's huge. But you're right, it's amazing how many people, and I know I say the word amazing too often. It just blows my mind. Here, how's that? That so many bosses, managers, you know, middle management, upper management, whatever, CEOs, how small-minded they become when you try to give them a reasonable request. You know, you're still trying to be productive and earn your pay, if you sign off for sick leave and get it, then you don't have to do any work and you're still costing the company money. I mean, nobody thinks this stuff through at all. Oh well. And you even tried explaining it to them. So, genius. You only pay mileage for the shortest possible trip? Okay then, you have to pay my tolls. At my job, every day I have to travel between 2 offices. I start at my main office, then have to travel to the second office, then back to my main office. Because I'm using my personal vehicle for this travel, the company pays me mileage. Well, there are basically 2 routes you can take between the 2 offices. One is about a mile round trip shorter but has tolls, so I always took the 1 mile longer route and avoid the tolls. I did it this way for a year. Well, in comes the new bookkeeper and she's hell-bent on saving the company money. And where does she think all this wasteful money is going? Expense reports, obviously. So she starts nitpicking every report. Like if someone is out and has to buy some pens for work, she goes online and finds the cheapest price possible for those pens and only reimburses for that cheaper price. It obviously has pissed several people off. Well, she eventually decided to target me. I submit my report for 2 weeks, and a few days later I get the reimbursement payment. Well, it's $5.85 short. I ask her about it and she says I've been ripping off the company for the past year by taking the longer route between the offices. She will only pay mileage for the shorter route from now on. And I'm lucky she doesn't go back and take back all the extra from the past year. I say okay, but to please send me that per her I must take the shorter route and that this is a company policy and leave her office. Before I even made it to my desk, I had the email from her confirming what she said. 2 weeks later, I submit my expense report. I reported the shorter route, so the company saved $5.85, but tolls added up to $136. A net loss for the company of $130.15. It's been 6 months and I'm still taking the shorter route, costing the company an extra $130.15 every 2 weeks. So many of these compliance stories are all for the same reason. The ones from today's episode anyway are all for the same reason so far. It's all about people being cheap. And this lady thinks she's going to come in and be the hero by, saving a few pennies. Yeah, she did just enough research to see what the mileage was, but she didn't do enough research to realize that one of them was a toll road and one of them wasn't. Oh boy. You want me to leave your pizza on your doorstep without paying for it again? This was and still is my personal favorite story of malicious compliance delivered by yours truly. I'm a few brewskis deep, so I apologize for any grammar mistakes. Backstory. This particular customer's address and phone number still haunts me to this day because they either full-on stiffed me or underpaid for every single delivery I ever made for them, and they were on the very edge of our delivery area, 20-mile radius. I was around 20 to 22 years old, driving a 1988 4.0 HO Jeep Cherokee as a pizza delivery vehicle for a company whose logo is a very popular table game in the U.S. prison system. Tips were very important to my survival as an employee there, as they literally paid for the gas I needed to do my job because the company refused to pay mileage and fuel. But I did the smart thing and kept track and used that for a significant deduction on my taxes. Save your receipts if you use your personal vehicle for work. Fuel, fluid, changes, brake pads, etc. My manager and I are rolling up and getting ready to call it a night after a dead shift when the phone rings 2 minutes before closing time. It's that family calling for their 2 veggie pizzas with grilled chicken. The owners of this franchise have full access to the call logs in store, so they know if we don't answer before closing and take the order, or it's firing time. I proceed to drive the 20 minutes to the house to find out they aren't home. They always pay in cash, exact change or less. I call the number they have listed for deliveries, hear the phone ringing. Yeah, landlines were still a thing. Ask your parents if you don't know what that is. No answer. Okay, try the secondary number. Voicemail. So I figure I'll go back to the Jeep with the pizzas still in the heat bag to make sure they stay safe and warm while I call the manager to see what I should do. He answers and I quote, "You aren't going to like this," came out of his mouth. "Manager, they want you to leave the pizza on the doorstep because you didn't get it there fast enough, so they went to the pizza place down the street from their house." Me. On their doorstep? Okay. My poor shoes. My poor shoes that night. I had white DC quartz, whatever that is. In a fit of pizza-driven rage, I dumped that veggie pizza face down on that doorstep, and I waffle stomped that bee permanently into that exposed aggregate concrete, and used the box to scoop up what was left to wipe it all over the front door. I left with a feeling of meaningful bliss, and when I got back to the store, we permanently blacklisted that address and phone number. If someone is using their time, fuel, and life to bring you food, effing tip them. Okay, so first thing is, I used to work for that same company, and it used to be company policy that they paid for mileage on top of your salary. Is that no longer a thing? I'm trying to figure out, I wonder if your manager was just screwing you in that particular store, because that was a thing. We got a very meager hourly wage and the rest was tips and mileage. So, I don't know. As for tips, yeah, I'd be a little miffed if people didn't tip me, but at the same time, as long as they paid for their whole order, then I was fine. I refused to carry actual change, coins back then. I would carry singles. I wouldn't even carry any fives, just a fat wad of $1 bills in my pocket and get it as close as I could. And I wasn't rounding down, I was rounding up, and they just had to live with it. But I don't think I ever had anybody stiff me. I did have somebody give me their old address by mistake. They had moved from, one part of town to the other part of town, and it was only a 5-minute drive from one house to the other. And it was an honest mistake. They called the shop. Of course, we didn't have cell phones then, so by the time I got back to the shop, they had called the shop, and so we decided to go ahead and make them fresh pizza and deliver it. Yeah, but they were cool. They tipped me $20, which, in 1980 something, that's not too bad. So no late Friday travel. Okay. I used to work for a major national insurance company. I would go on work trips 3 to 4 times a year for various things, usually leaving on Monday and returning on a Friday, either the same week or a few weeks later. They were mostly for training or catastrophic situations like fires, hailstorms, etc. What I usually did was finish work on Friday and fly home by midnight on the same day, making it an 18-hour-ish day. I would normally work 12s on deployment. I roughly got paid about $35 an hour at that point. So with the time and a half, an extra $315 of pay for the day. After submitting my expense report, my boss calls me up and tells me that what I did was not allowed because it violated policy. They want to travel during normal work hours, even on the weekend. You have to understand that during catastrophic events, hotel prices skyrocket because people's houses are damaged and can't live in their homes, and the insurance company pays for a hotel. So basically, they're paying about $350 to $400 a night for a hotel for me. So I broke down the math for my boss. $315 for me or $350 for a hotel company, and they would still have to pay me for the travel day, which would still be at the overtime rate because I already worked 60-ish hours that week. He basically told me it was not him driving this conversation, it was his boss. So I worked there for 7 years. So for 21 plus trips, that conversation cost the company about $10,000. $350 for the hotel, $50 per diem. At $105 of overtime pay I would get for the travel day, 2 extra hours, 8 hours instead of 6, all times 21 plus. But the real part that pissed me off was I had to spend another day away from my family. I got the small satisfaction that I cost more money because of the stupid rule. Yep, anytime you can charge the company a stupid tax like that, take it, do it. They'll either learn or they're going to shell out more money, that's all. One-time price approval? You got it. I currently work for a medical device company, and in fact, this bit of malicious compliance is happening right now. Consider me inspired by the stories I read from here on breaks. One of the duties of my job is to help close out and bill for product that salespeople use in the field for cases. I deal a lot with these salespeople and their managers with pricing, because oftentimes what a salesperson will offer will be off base from what is actually loaded and approved for them in our system. It's a very better to ask forgiveness than for permission type of arrangement, but it's usually a quick fix on our end once management approves, after some finger wagging, so it's not a big deal. Well, today I get one of these receipts to close and the pricing quoted is off, like thousands of dollars off. Turns out the sales rep had quoted a bundle discount. Buy 5 of these 3 items and we'll slash prices, as the regular standalone discount. I smell something fishy, so before I do the usual and reach out to management for approval on pricing, I check the order history out of suspicion. Turns out they had pulled this very same trick in the past and the manager left an email giving their approval, but also, in bold, specified this was a one-time deal. Cue malicious compliance. Following this manager's directive, I closed the order with the much higher, read, correct pricing, and now things are blowing up with the manager and the sales rep, seeing the customer about to be hit with a huge bill, and the manager asking why I didn't go with the pricing that was quoted. I just sent them an email with their own screenshot, and now they're reaching out to explain to their managers what happened, proverbial hat in hand. When I ran an office outside of Philly for a Sears authorized remodeling type company, our salespeople were horrible with that. Almost every one of them. And it's the sales manager's fault. He's the one that was teaching them to either undercharge to get the sale. I don't know what he was teaching them, but they were definitely promising the moon. They would overpromise on product, give hugely wrong descriptions. They tell them their new garage door was going to do everything except wash their dishes after dinner. It's just, stop lying. Don't lie to get a sale. And then tell them, well, we can knock 40% off of that. No, we can't. I think the salespeople were authorized to give about 10% max. Try for 5%, 10% if you really need to close that deal that day. And even that to me seems a little nuts, but hey, I get it. So I know living on commission is tough. So, well, hey guys, I hope you like these stories. And if you did, would you consider doing me a favor? Maybe click that like button, subscribe to the channel, and then click that little bell icon so you don't miss the fat guy with the beard telling you stories. See ya.